All right, so this week we are diving deep into a show that's been called a hilarious and innovative precursor to Friends. And you heard that right. It actually premiered first. A
Mhm.
perfect 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for its first season. Can you believe that?
Really?
That's unheard of. But
Like,
that's Dream On for you, the 90s sitcom that's finally hit streaming.
yeah, it's not just a nostalgia trip either. Dream On was daring for its time, weaving in clips from old TV and movies to tell its story.
All right.
It's like a commentary on how media seeps into our lives and,
Oh.
packaged in this funny, relatable sitcom.
Okay, so for those who haven't had the pleasure, imagine this. It's New York City, and Brian Benben is Martin Tupper, a recently divorced book editor navigating life, love, and anxieties and all that.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. His inner thoughts are voiced through these vintage clips.
Yeah, and it's not just for laughs. Dream On dives into how early media exposure, especially in childhood, shapes us.
Right?
Remember that recurring bit about Martin's babysitter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it speaks volumes about how those early experiences can color our perceptions, even our romantic fantasies.
It's like the show is saying we're all walking around with these internal montages playing on a loop influenced by everything we've ever watched.
Exactly.
So is Dream On suggesting we're all just products of the media we consume, or is it more nuanced than that?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's what makes the show so fascinating.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from these complex themes, divorce, sexuality, the ever-present influence of media, but it tackles them with humor and heart.
Yeah, and you've got to hand it to the creators, Marta Kauffman and David Crane. They went on to create Friends, another show that absolutely nailed the whole being single in New York thing. But Dream On was doing it first right. 3 years earlier on HBO, no less.
Yeah, you're catching on. This wasn't just some cookie-cutter network sitcom. HBO gave them the freedom to push boundaries, and they definitely went there with Dream On, exploring more mature themes and pushing the comedic envelope a little bit.
So we've got a show that's cleverly written, daring for its time, and touches on how media shapes our lives. What's the deal with this 100% Rotten Tomatoes score? Did critics back then get what Dream On was going for? Well, I found this New York Times review from back then and critic Dave Kerr called Dream On, an innovative dual setup. At once a straightforward family sitcom and a sexy singles romp that anticipates Friends.
Anticipates is the key word there, yeah. It's really remarkable how Dream On captures that pre-Friends era when being single in New York City felt both exciting and utterly terrifying.
He also called the show refreshingly original, but mentioned some weak spots, saying it can be, smarmy at times. Did Dream On ever become a victim of its own cleverness?
Perhaps, especially in later seasons. It's a delicate balance, walking that line between satire and sincerity.
Hmm.
But remember, this was a time when sitcoms were just starting to experiment with pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable.
Right, and Dream On definitely wasn't afraid to go there. Speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about the cast. Brian Benben as Martin is fantastic, but you've also got Wendy Malick bringing her signature wit as his ex-wife and Michael McKean popping up in these hilarious recurring roles. This show is stacked.
And that cast really got to shine on HBO. It allowed for a more nuanced adult approach to humor that you wouldn't have seen on network TV at the time.
But it did eventually move to Comedy Central, right? What happened there? Did they have to tone it down for a broader audience?
Exactly. The Comedy Central version was edited for content, which makes you think about how our relationship with television has evolved. What was considered edgy in the early 90s might raise an eyebrow today, but for different reasons.
Yeah. It's like Dream On itself is a commentary on how media reflects the values and anxieties of its time. But beyond the format and cultural context, what makes Dream On stand out for you? What moments or episodes have really stuck with you?
There's an episode where Martin's entire inner monologue is a black and white film noir. It's so unexpected and brilliantly executed. Moments like that highlight the show's willingness to experiment, to play with genre conventions, and take creative risks.
It's true. You never knew what to expect with Dream On, but you always knew it would be clever, insightful, and make you think about things in a new way. I'm curious, though, if Dream On premiered today in this age of streaming and peak TV, would it get lost in the shuffle or find a whole new audience?
That's the million-dollar question. On the one hand, we're in a golden age of television with so much quality content competing for our attention. But on the other hand, there's a certain charm and nostalgia to Dream On that I think would resonate with modern viewers, especially those who appreciate sharp writing and media commentary.
Yeah, it's like we're all constantly trying to figure out where we fit in, just like Martin navigating life with these old TV clips playing in his head.
Right, and that's the beauty of Dream On. It reminds us that even with all the changes in technology and how we consume media, some things remain universal.
Hmm.
The desire for connection, the struggle to find your place in the world, and the humor we find in the everyday.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe Dream On was simply ahead of its time. Maybe in today's world of memes and viral videos, its unique brand of media commentary would hit even harder.
It's certainly a thought-provoking watch. Even decades later, Dream On encourages us to look at television not just as entertainment, but as a reflection of ourselves and the culture we inhabit.
So if you're looking for a show that's both a hilarious time capsule of 90s culture and a surprisingly insightful look at the power of media, give Dream On a shot.
Yeah, you might just find yourself laughing along with Martin Tupper and his vintage inner monologue.
And who knows, you might even catch yourself thinking, hey, I've totally had that same thought bubble with a slightly different clip playing in the background. Until next time, keep exploring and remember sometimes the most rewarding deep dives take us to the most unexpected places.